Okay, to do your increase, normally I would tell you to start at the widest part of your pattern first. But since I forgot to put that in my pattern, you started with the band first. Meaning that now you need to know how to increase before you can actually do the decrease back down to the regular amount. So what you need to do is have your thread coming out your end bead. Okay? Have your thread coming out your end bead. Put a bead on your thread. I'm using fishing line, which I don't normally use. I hate using fishing line because I can't get it through any of my needles, no matter what size I buy. Now, take your needle and take your thread and go back through your end bead. And it gives you your first bead of your next row. Okay, right now it's pointing down, but it'll come back around where it should be. And then do your peyote on that row. And I'll show you how to add for your next row, for your last bead on this row and the beginning of the next row. Okay, now you're at the end of your row. You're at the end of your row. And you not only need your bead that goes here, but you need your bead to start your next row. So, pick up 2 beads. And bring them down. And you've got your last bead for this row and your first bead for the next row. Now, go back through the first of the 2 beads that you just added. It looks a little wonky right now, but it'll straighten out when I get done with this row. And then peyote across. But now I have my row across. And again, I'm at the point where I need my last bead for this row and my first bead for the next row. So again, pick up 2 beads and go back through just the first bead that you added. So you pick up 2 beads and bring them down. Skip your first bead and go through your second bead here, which is actually the first bead you put on. And then do your peyote across, and I'll show you how to continue that in just a second. Now, since this is your last row of your increase, you only need to add 1 bead to your thread. So you bring it down and you go through your last bead where your thread is coming out. Now this is where it actually gets a little bit tricky, because you need to go through that last one. And then, in order to be able to get where you need to be able to do these 5 beads, you actually need to do the little wonky turnaround. Through your top bead there, through the one underneath it, and then through the last bead of the last row. Oops, I went around my bead. There we go. Now, yes, you're not going to touch this corner bead, this end bead here yet. This end bead is going to stay a little bit loose for this row here. Now, on this row, because this is your indented row, now you've got your 3 increases. So now you're where you've got your next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, your next 8 rows that are either on top of your end ones or on top of your next bead. Okay? So for this row only, you skip that first outer bead, you pick up your bead, and it'll sit, if you're coming out your last bead of your last row here, your bead that you pick up will sit on top of that, because you're going to go through this bead here. Okay, now this bead is going to want to turn, but that's fine for right now. It'll get straightened out on your next row. So do your peyote across, and then I'll show you what to do next. If you notice, when you did your peyote on this row, you actually worked out right to where you came out that end bead. You see, my fishing line is coming out that very end bead. Okay, and that's how you want it to be. Your next bead will sit right on top of that. So start your next row, and I'll meet you back here by the other end. Okay, so now we're at the other end where your little wonky bead is at here. Okay. Now, you need a bead on top of that. Grab a bead, and do your little wonky turnaround. That's how you do that. You got to make sure you go through that end bead, though, so that it pulls that bead up in place where it needs to be. But instead of going down to the bead under it, instead of going down here to attach this top bead, because you're going to have to go through this one, instead of going through this one as well, go to the top bead. By going through the top of those other 2 beads, it will pull the one bead up into place where it needs to be. See? See how it looks good now? And now, just go back, go through your bottom bead. Go through your other bottom bead. And go back through your top bead. And you're all set to finish the rest of the rows of your heart. And then you said you know how to decrease, so there's going to be no problem with finishing off the heart now. If you have any problems, let me know.